have all the banks, going broke at one time, you might have some bank failures, and that would get rid of the banks that overextended and made the mistakes. But no, he thinks it's a super regulator. But the big problem with this right now is they're behind the scenes, I'm convinced, looking toward a worldwide regulator. They want to internationalize all the regulations of banks and all commerce. And if you think the Fed messed up, wait till we have this internationalized. It's going to be a lot worse.
At the time, we understand you have to go. Congressman Paul, it's always a pleasure. Until next Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, thanks for joining Freedom Watch.
Good to see you.
Lew Rockwell, thanks for joining us. Do I need this microphone for Lew? Okay, I'll take it out of my face.
John, great to be with you.
Thank you. Peter Schiff and Tracy Burns are also with us. John Stossel in about 15 minutes or so. One of the things that terrified me, in fact, these three words literally caused me to lose sleep as I heard them, as I thought about them, having come out of the mouth of Prime Minister Gordon Brown when he spoke to the Congress. And the words were Global New Deal. Well, what the heck is he talking about? It follows from what Congressman Paul was just saying. If you think the Fed is a bad regulator, could you imagine if the American government, through some treaty, entered into some kind of a supernumerary regulator that had the power to regulate the banks in more than one country, among which were ours?
Well, John Maynard Keynes certainly advocated a global central bank so that there could be inflation everywhere and there'd be no escape. You could never have a country inflating less than others and therefore have a sounder currency. So, I think Ron is exactly right when he says they're scheming this behind the scenes. And as to a global New Deal, what Gordon Brown and obviously President Obama and I think most of the presidents of Western countries want to have this massive spending, and I guess in Asia too, massive spending, massive so-called stimulus, massive money printing, and to bring about, of course, what's going to be a very long, very deep global depression. So these guys have taken a bad situation and they've made it horrendously worse.
Well, what kind of a mechanism could there possibly be, Peter Schiff, for this international regulation? It would regulate the Chinese currency at the same time it regulated the euro and the dollar?
I don't think there can be. And I think what people fail to understand is the only reason that our phony economy has been able to prosper is because we've got 1 billion people in China who aren't consuming, who are saving all their money and making it available to us. If the rest of the world tried to do what we're asking, if the Chinese tried to consume more, it's only going to be because we consume less. They have to ship less of their products to us. If the Chinese are going to use more gasoline to drive their cars, that's going to mean gas is going to be more expensive for us. So we can only keep this going so long as the rest of the world is willing to cooperate and artificially suppress their own standard of living and their own consumption. We can't all ride in the wagon, right? Somebody's got to be pulling it.
Do we effectively pay tariffs when we send products to China because of their manipulation of their currency? And they don't call it a tariff.
No, the Chinese citizens are the ones paying the tariffs. They're the ones that are subsidizing. We're getting the benefit of all this low-cost goods that without China, we would have to go without it.
That have no rules and are laden with poison, the majority of them.
Well, I don't think the products are as bad as you think. I'm sure you use a lot of Chinese products, and I'm sure they're just fine.
I think the argument, though, is, and I'm against it as well, but you could see where they're coming from. Take the autos, for instance. Autos are looking for a bailout. Well, why? Because their foreign counterparts are getting bailed out, so it seems only fair. If Nissan's getting money back home, Honda's getting money back home, they should be getting money here to keep everybody on a level playing field.
What would Gordon Brown gain, Lew, by some type of cooperative regulation whereby some entity that regulated the Fed also regulated the Bank of England?
Well, I think he's concerned about being bailed out. I mean, he wants more power. Every politician wants more power, with the exception of Ron Paul. So he, in a global, some sort of global financial governance, he may see himself as playing a role. But, as recently was reported, the City of London, the banks in the City of London, lost $1 trillion in the foreign money moving out in the last quarter of last year. No telling what they've lost so far this year. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons the U.S. dollar is up, because all that money came out of London. I think Gordon Brown feels that England's going to have to be bailed out, and he's looking to other countries that are saving more than they're spending, as Peter Schiff points out, to bail him out. And I think that's his basic motivation.
Mrs. Pelosi revealed this morning that Congressman Obey of Wisconsin, who's the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, has directed his staff to begin drafting another stimulus. Now, if the $800 billion was their salvation, why do they need another several hundred billion stimulus immediately following it?
Well,
and why not do it all at once if their theory is correct?
Well, we don't need them. The stimuluses are compounding the problems. That's why no matter how much they stimulate us, we're always going to need another one because they're never going to work. They're always going to make the problem worse. Now, in some respects, the stimuluses slow it down a bit. So things would probably be a little bit worse had they not stimulated, but we'd be that much closer to solving these problems. You know, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. If you just rip it off, it hurts for a second. But if you don't want to do that, you're just going to gradually peel it off. It's going to hurt a lot more, and that's what they're doing with these stimuluses. And so, the worse they make the economy, the more they're going to feel that they have to stimulate it, and the more they stimulate it, the worse it's going to get. It's like a self-perpetuating spiral that we can't seem to get out of.
What do you attribute the market's rise yesterday? Was it the meager? I call them meager earnings of Citicorp.
What earnings?
Right. I mean, we gave Citicorp $30 billion and they earned $8. So big deal. What happened to the other 22?
And what about their bad assets?
You know what? It started. It started with Citi. We started the day with a little good news, but there was so much behind the scenes that happened that for some reason went unreported. They started doing their stress tests down in D.C. The government stress testing these banks, and it's actually going relatively well. There was also this news about mark-to-market. The market is so obsessed with the notion of mark-to-market accounting. Should you abolish it? Should you not abolish it? We could talk about that for hours at a time. But the fact that that's coming up on the table tomorrow, that all rallied the market. So I think
they also talked about suspending the uptick rule, where you're making it harder to short stocks. And I think the market caught a bid on that. But of course, markets don't go down every day. You have bear market rallies,
right,
and sometimes you have huge rallies. The biggest rallies always occur in bear markets. And I still think we're in a bear market. I don't care how high this rally goes, even if we get back up to 8,500. If we have a 30% move up, it's not going to change.
As I understand the uptick rule, and of course my background is in law with a minor in the economy, but as I understand the uptick rule, the market would have to go up some point during the slide, or the slide stops.
Well, not the market. The uptick rule.
Or the average.
Well, it simply refers to individual stocks.
Right.
Okay.
That in order to short an individual stock,
okay,
it needs to tick up. There needs to be a move up before you can short it. Or
at the present time, the uptick rule has been suspended.
They suspended it, meaning if you want to sell a stock short, it doesn't matter what the last trade was. You can just short it. You can sell into a falling market.
Would the reinstatement of the uptick rule save unnecessary and unnatural catastrophic losses? Or would the reinstatement of the uptick rule prevent people from the benefit of their bargains?
Look, I don't think it would do anything. I mean, obviously, it might result in a somewhat less efficient market and maybe worse fills for some short sellers, or maybe even people looking to buy. But it was more psychological. I don't think the uptick rule really did anything.
How could the market go up, Lew Rockwell, on the basis of news from Citicorp, given what we have already paid to Citicorp? I mean, basically, we paid $1 to earn 20 cents. How could that possibly be good news?
Well, I guess if some people believe that there are actually going to be fewer losses, I myself don't think so. But there's no telling why. When it was Peters, and even in the 1930s, there were major moves up in the market during that very long Great Depression. So these things can happen, and maybe it was even the plunge protection team. Who knows?
Did we bottom yesterday, or is this just wishful thinking?
Well, I mean, in real terms, we always have to think about stocks in real terms. The bottom is probably 5 or 10 years away, meaning the price of the Dow measured in gold or maybe other foreign currencies.
But you won't know if we hit the true bottom.
Well, if this
for
is
a couple years.
Right, but if this type of bear market that's been going on for the length of time it has since 2000, in my opinion, and how bad our economy is now and how much worse it's going to be in a few years, this is not an environment where you're going to make real money in stocks. And I still think stocks are expensive based on real objective measures of valuation, like PEs, like dividend yields, like price to book. Stocks in the U.S., despite their big drop, are still expensive. They're nowhere near bear market low territory.
All right, so the president says, well, the stock market is like a poll during an election campaign. It's a snapshot of a moving picture. I mean, that's really terribly unfair or naive or ideological, whatever you want to call it, of the president to say that about such a great free market engine, isn't it?
Well, I mean...
And for him to compare it to a poll